that leads me into the question that you had asked, which I'm going to answer not as like a coach, but more as just personal experience in losing weight myself. And the question is, how do you deal with cravings in general, and how do you deal with bad habits, like when you go to your parents' house, you wake up in the middle of the night, and you want to eat something. I don't do it anywhere else, but I did account for those calories, though it made it for a tougher day. I'm going to answer it in two parts: the cravings and dealing with the bad habits. The dealing with the bad habits, and this is just very honest and again from personal experience, you have to be very intentional and proactive in the beginning. What does that look like? When those cravings hit, you recognize I probably shouldn't be doing this. We all do. We all have things like that, right? Like for me, it was the same deal. It was just like, oh, there's Pizza Hut in the refrigerator. I've already eaten dinner. Sounds good though. I'm gonna eat it, right? I in those moments, I'm intentionally telling myself, why are you eating that? You're not hungry. It's not going to contribute to anything you're trying to accomplish. It's only going to, right? The initial thing that started me to want to lose weight was all those heart problems I had in bed at 21, weighing 100, 270 pounds, 100 pounds more, 140 pounds more than I weighed at the time. And so I thought that pizza is is first of all a step in the wrong direction and going to contribute to you continuing to develop all of these issues you don't want. And B, you've worked very hard at this point, and this is true of you too, to develop these good habits. When you let those bad habits creep in like that, you're taking steps back, right? It is like taking balls out of your bucket. You've made deposits in a bucket of good habits for the last 8 weeks. Every time you make that choice to do something you know you probably shouldn't do or that is a bad habit, you're pulling balls out of your bucket. And for me, I did not like that idea. I did not like the idea that that slice of pizza had more control over me than I had over myself. And that alone made me, in that moment, even if I wanted it, say, I am not going to let that freaking pizza rule my life. And I wouldn't eat it. Now, that got easier over time. I didn't have to be as intentional about it. I didn't have to give myself this big pep talk about pizza versus my control as time goes on. Every time I made the choice to say no to the pizza or no to the bag of trail mix or no to the Fritos or no to whatever, it was a ball in my bucket that then made it easier to say no the next time with less thought. So now, 15 years later, and frankly, it was a year later, after making that choice intentionally so many times, it became subconscious decision. There's Pizza Hut in the fridge. Huh, well, if I'm hungry tomorrow for lunch, I guess I'll have a slice. It wasn't a thing anymore. But you don't get the luxury of it not being a thing until you make the conscious decision and do the work of making it not a thing, right? There is no free lunch, meaning you can't have the luxury of conveniently choosing correctly without having developed the habit and pushing through hard times. I just did a podcast, and the podcast was on alcohol addiction, and she calls it the river of misery. And she's right. You gotta float through the river of misery. You're on the side, which is, I don't want to be here anymore. These are my old habits, all of the good new habits that I want to over here. And in the middle, there is a river of misery that you've got to cross, right? There is no way around it. But if you wade through the river of misery, and you will get to the other side, and it does get easier. So it's a very long-winded way of saying, how do you kick cravings intentionally at first, and then you get the luxury of it no longer being a thing after a while.